Hey everybody, it's Sarah and it's Saturday, and today we're talking about sort of internal expectations that we have of ourselves and a way to diffuse them or manage them such that, we can settle and be at peace with something that's good or excellent, and it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be exactly the way we want it. It's so much harder than it looks. And I've had to, psychologist after psychologist, after counselor after therapist after tell me over and over again, well, you should give yourself a break. You don't expect that of other people. You don't expect affection of other people. So you should give yourself a break too. You don't have to do, perfect, because you don't expect that of other people. Yeah, that's not the way it works in my head. You're way overestimating the compassion that I have for myself at that point. In my world, I do have to do better, and I do believe that I have to be perfect, and nothing else is, acceptable. And that whole, compassionate consideration for myself, do nice things for yourself and that kind of stuff, yeah, it just doesn't work. I'm not deserving of that consideration in my head. On some days. Some days I'm, more and more I'm working towards that, be gentle, be kind, kind of thing to yourself. But for the longest time, I just wanted to scream at people. You don't understand. I do have to be better than everybody. And what is perfect for me is, equivalent to someone's, very good. That's just the way that it works in my head and in my world, and I understand that that's not the way that it works, actually. But I still can't let go of that belief system. And it's going to take a really, really long time. And I do more now than I did 4 years ago. But there are certain ways that you can get around it. And when I thought of my expectations in this way, the way I'm going to get into, it was so, so much easier to let go and be imperfect. One of the ways that I thought of it is basically by communicating that I have to do better than everybody else is a little tiny bit conceited, even though I don't mean for it to be. Basically what I'm saying is, oh yeah, 75 is good for you, or a B, whatever, is good for you, but I have to get an A+. I'm just I'm better that way. That's essentially what I'm saying is, I need to get an A+, even though a B is good for you. I'm better than you? That's basically what it said. That's basically what you're saying, and we don't realize, actually, and I didn't realize this either until earlier this year, but when you watch a whole bunch of anorexic people, or bulimic people, it was mostly anorexics when I was in there, but if you watch people with eating disorders, they're very, very snobby, and it's not intentional at all. It's part of the disorder, and most people get past this, and they're the nicest people in the world, and that kind of thing, but, anorexics are always rushed, and they're always, or, people with eating disorders are always rushed, and they, are always focused on something that's not really that important, i.e. the food content or whatever, and we communicate this barrier of, no, there's a set of standards for you, and there's a set of standards for me, and my set of standards is better, even though I think yours are okay. It's annoying, it's hypocritical, and it's kind of conceited. So when on my really bad days, when I didn't feel like being gentle to myself, and when I didn't feel like being kind or fair to myself, that's the way I got around it. If you're going to complain about a mark or whatever, don't be complaining about an A+ when someone else has got an A. That's, you're just sort of taking the wind out of their sails. So that's one way that I thought of it that worked quite well for me until I got to the point where I did want to be gentle and kind and fair to myself. And, it's a good place to be there, and I definitely encourage that approach before I do the, you don't expect out of others what you do of yourself and what kind of message is that sending. It would be best if you didn't think about it that way, but sometimes you have to think about it in any way to get away from it and to get some distance from that expectation that, everything has to be perfect. And you have to sort of experience things not being perfect to realize that you can handle it. And that, to me, was the way that I got away from it. I tried to remember that humility is something that I really value, and that I need to celebrate other people's achievements, and if they mirror mine, then by not celebrating my achievements as well, I undermine the value of theirs. So yeah, that was one way that I got around it. The second thing is the whole thing about, treat others the way you want to be treated yourself. That works two ways. One, it teaches, the way that we usually think about it is that you try very, very hard to be compassionate, and, what would I like if I were in that same situation? How would I want to be treated? That's the whole thing that we usually use. But I reversed it, and it was really helpful for things like self-injury, and I said, what you wouldn't do to someone else, you don't get to do to yourself either. And that I found extremely helpful, because, one of the things I like to be mindful of is that, everybody wants to be treated with respect and kindness and, all that kind of stuff. And I have no problem doing that for other people. So, I hold true to that standard, but I can't turn around and have the opposite standard, because that's hypocritical again and annoying and just not much fun for everybody around you. But basically, if I wouldn't do it to someone else, so if I wouldn't starve someone else, if I wouldn't force them to eat huge amounts of food and then bring it up or somehow compensate for it, if I wouldn't hurt physically myself, if I wouldn't neglect myself to the point of near death, or if I wouldn't neglect someone to the point of near death, then I don't get to do it to myself either, because the bottom line is that I am a person like the next person, like the next person, like the next person, like the next person. I am more similar than I am different to every single person on this earth, and a lot of monkeys too. And I'm the same as them. And so I really do have to have the same set of standards, no matter how difficult that may be for me. So yeah, it's kind of difficult because you have to kind of think about it in a really sort of self-defeating way. But like I said, sometimes you need that distance away from being perfect and achieving, what you would consider like optimal control and that kind of thing. You need the distance away from that to realize that you can survive it, and then at that point you can start being really gentle and kind to yourself the way that you deserve. And it's easier, but it does take a while. And hopefully by next week you'll all be cured and have no more high expectations for yourself. But, if not, I'll still be here with you because I'm still working on it as well. Take care, and I hope you all have a good week.